Loving it, guys. Saturday night dash of DFS. We are back with you again. How is everybody this evening? We are back, dash of DFS. Toilets to Titles. Follow us, toiletstotitles.com. Follow us at Toilets to Titles on the Twitter. With me, I got my man Joe. Joe down below. What's going on, man? How we doing this evening?
Week 2, baby. Week 1 was a lot of insanity. Some things we expected, maybe some things we didn't expect, and a little bit of the in between. So can't wait to get back at it for week 2. It's nice to have a week of information now, right? Like we had, that was like blindfolded last week, making those lineups other than a few things you can count on. Now we have a week of data to talk about.
Call it data if you want to. I've always been a guy that thinks that week 1 is kind of a wash. Like, especially when you have a lot of teams that sat throughout the preseason and stuff like that looked really rusty, i.e. the shirt of the next man I'm going to be bringing up real quick. Here's my man Jeff on my left. How we doing? How's it going tonight, Jeff?
I'm doing well, brother. Happy to be here again. What a week 1. Of course, the shirt speaks for itself. Mr. Aaron Rodgers, we are all disappointed, my friend. For the second year in a row, you throw an absolute bomb of a week 1, no touchdowns, not even 200 yards. I mean, what a week 1 in general. The games were fantastic. You had the good, the bad, and the New York Jets. I'm pretty sure Joe Flacco got his AARP card during the game, but I digress. I'll kick it back to you, Mikey, to get us going.
He got it at halftime, kind of like how they do like retirement things and things like that. He got his AARP card at halftime. There was a big presentation.
There you go.
That's good stuff. Okay, so we're just going to go ahead and kick right into it again. Once follow us at toiletstotitles.com. We got the best articles in the business. We got some of the best writers in the business. You guys are going to want to get on there. And also when you get on there, get on our patreon.com/toiletstotitles. It's like $2 or $3 or $4. I don't know. Give us $20. If you give us $20, we'll do a whole show about you. I know that one I do know. I think $5 gets you into the Frankenstein. Man, there's just all kinds of stuff. There's so many different things. Here, we'll go ahead and just hit that. At $3 gets you in the Discord, $5 early access to waiver wire, invite to the Frankenstein. $7.50, you get the one-on-one draft advice, which it's probably a little late for that, but we can at least sit there and pick on your waivers each week. $10 free entry into the Frankenstein there. $20 one-on-one roster analysis, and like I said, a 30-minute draft breakdown in the episode of your draft. But I'm with Justin on that. I'll do a show about anything you want for 30 minutes. I'll talk about Game of Thrones and how crappy the ending was, if that's what you'd like. If you want to hear my take on why Empty Nest got taken off the air in 1985, I'm your fucking guy. All right, we got you. So that's
I'll tell you what, I just finished Ozark the other night. Holy shit,
Woo!
That was good.
That's a real bummer that doesn't continue. I kind of want to see where that would go. But I do also kind of like how they ended it the way they did. Like, it's just
it reminded me of The Sopranos a little bit, a little different, but it did give me a flashback to The Sopranos, really, just as like the last couple seconds as, a gun being flashed at somebody and, open to your interpretation as far as what happens once the screen goes to black.
Yeah, no, that was a great show. I just watched it. Actually, it's crazy you say that because I just finished it probably about a month ago. So I was not like, it wasn't like I was like way ahead of the curve on that one either. I just barely caught up myself. So, and I really enjoyed it.
I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one who was not expecting an Empty Nest reference on a Saturday night, but
Hey, real quick, and I don't normally interrupt the plug piece, but one thing here from a DFS perspective, we're going to be throwing out an article every Thursday preceding the Thursday night game that's quickly going to summarize that Thursday night game from a fantasy DFS perspective, and then it will end with giving a single game DraftKings DFS Thursday night lineup. So, stay tuned to toiletstotitles.com for that article landing every Thursday afternoon to help inform you on Thursday nights.
Excellent. So, yeah, you're going to want to be on toiletstotitles.com anyways, but that's even a bigger bonus right there. So, with that, we'll go ahead and kick off into the show. What we always like to start out with is our quarterback fades of the week. This is the You Shall Not Pass segment because we always get tied up with all these. We get tied up with all these quarterbacks and things like that we get in season. This is DFS. We're able to flex our lineups a little bit, and we're able to fade these guys. And I think if I'm thinking correctly, maybe not Jeff so much, but I think Joe and I definitely have a couple of top tier guys that we're fading this week, so we're going to be saving you some money if you follow us. And I'm going to go ahead and start this off. My guy that I'm fading this week is Tom Brady. Tom Brady against the Saints is always pretty abysmal. He can't get, I believe he has 8 touchdowns to, 8 interceptions. I'd have to look that up. But it's the worst. He plays them the worst out of any other team. He has a really tough time playing them in New Orleans. So I'm fading Tom Brady. I'm out. I'm not for his price tag. I think I can get somebody a little bit cheaper that we'll be talking about later. Joe, who you fading this week?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I'm fading Kyler Murray this week. He's at Las Vegas, which we're not going to sit here and say that's a horrible matchup defensively. It's not, but he only put up 20 last week home against Kansas City when they put 44 on him and Arizona had to throw the whole second half. The no DeAndre Hopkins thing is obviously hurting them. Now they're without both Moore and Isabella this week. And he's 7,500. So out of the 1 p.m. main DraftKings slate, he's actually the most expensive quarterback, $100 more expensive than Lamar Jackson, $300 more expensive than Russell Wilson. So I just don't, will Murray probably put up 20 to 25? Yes. Is that worth 7,500 as the most expensive quarterback on DraftKings this week? I don't think it is.
Excellent. And Jeff, who are we fading this week? Who are you out on?
Mike, I hate to start out disagreeing with you right away. If I know the history with Tom Brady in New Orleans, but if there's one thing I know about the GOAT is that he was disappointed with his last week. The guy is going to come back about as strong as can be. Again, I know the history, but I think Tommy's going to have a big game. The guy who I'm going with is the opposite in that game, is Jameis Winston in New Orleans, because Tampa Bay's probably got the best secondary in the league. And I just simply don't think that you're going to have a repeat performance like Michael Thomas had. And I don't think Jameis is really going to put up much. So we'll see what happens. But, that's kind of where I'm leaning.
Hey, I dig it. I don't mind the disagreement either. You said don't fade Patrick Mahomes last week, and I think that was probably the proper move when he put up 5 touchdowns against Arizona. I think almost by halftime, man, he lit those guys up. We got our man Nino checking in. He said, "What's good, boys? Easy like Thursday night. I love hearing it." We got Rich checking in. He says, DJ Chark is a good play this week in DFS. I actually agree. I have him in a couple of my slates and lineups.
Well, let's talk about that game real quick from a DFS perspective, if you don't mind. Only, last week you had Detroit and the Eagles, which I believe ended up being 38-35. And that was a fantasy bell cow game all around between Swift and Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown, and 3 different running backs for Philly scored a touchdown last week against Detroit. Then Detroit puts up a bunch of trash points in the second half. Now you have Washington at Detroit. And the interesting thing there was Antonio Gibson put up 20 last week for Washington. Dotson scores 2 touchdowns in his debut for Washington last week. Curtis Samuel, finally healthy, puts up a huge game for Washington, and now they're going to reap the benefits of Detroit. That looks like another game that could be a real fantasy smorgasbord of points once again. So I actually think that's a pretty insightful, stacking that game in general doesn't feel like a bad move right now.
Excellent. Yeah, there's a lot of points to be had out there on the field. I completely agree with you on that. That's a good, solid play. Nino says Paris Campbell and Curtis Samuels are both big plays this week, so he kind of agrees with you on at least the latter half of that right there. So,
well, and to his point too, just to give a quick injury update, I think the inspiration between that is Indianapolis just confirmed that both Pittman and I'm forgetting Pierce will be out. So Paris Campbell is now the number 1 wideout for an Indy team that is pretty much in a must-win situation after laying an egg last week and now going to Jacksonville, who completely ruined and ended their season last year too. So they're going to have to throw it to somebody. I guess it's going to be Paris Campbell.
Yikes. That's all I have to say about that is yikes. Start your Jonathan Taylor is all I have to say about that. So let's go ahead and get into players that we're paying up for. Jeff, who do you got on your slate this week that you're paying up for that you're saying is definitely going to be worth it and you're going to be happy about getting them in there?
I'll tell you, I realize Cooper Kupp is 9,700 on FanDuel. But I am all on the Cooper Kupp train until this baby slows down, because that seems to be Matthew Stafford's favorite target. I mean, he's getting what seems to be 15 targets a game, and the guy doesn't drop much, maybe one, I'll pay up for him all day, every day.
That's actually not a bad move right there. It's funny because everybody keeps talking about how Cooper Kupp can't repeat his season, and I'm like, why not? Like, I mean, he's Matt Stafford's first read, he's his second read, he's his third read, maybe all the way up to the fifth read, and then he'll look at Van Jefferson or maybe Allen Robinson on the eighth read, somewhere in there. But he's already made damn sure Cooper Kupp is blanketed. Joe, who are you paying up for this week?
Yeah, I mean, you said it earlier, Jonathan Taylor. I mean, you got to believe the Colts are going to win and score some points, and it ain't going to be with their wide receivers based on their health status. Taylor has had some juicy games against Jacksonville, so I am going to pay up for him in a lineup. I will say that, you know, Saquon Barkley, still reasonably priced, even though it's obviously higher than he was going into last week. But Barkley on DraftKings is only 7,300. That's a bargain. And then I am going to also pay up for Jamar Chase, 8,000 on DraftKings. Cincy, again, bad game last week, home against Pittsburgh. They get to pick on a completely mentally deflated Dallas team. No quarterback, no mental capacity to even put any effort into that game, I don't think, in Dallas this week. So I do like Jamar Chase. One quick thing. It's really funny, and we ended last week talking about some of the differences and how to take advantage between the differences in salaries on DraftKings and Fanduel that you see. And I'll tell you what, another thing, man, hitting these DraftKings this year where, you know, last year I was a Fanduel guy. You throw one or two expensive guys into your DraftKings lineup, and you're going with a bunch of 4,500 guys after that to even meet the salary requirements. There seems to just be way more flexibility in a FanDuel lineup to be able to play Kupp and maybe a Jonathan Taylor and maybe still play one more good, decent guy, quarterback, whatever, and then fill it in with some cheap plays. DraftKings really squeezes you salary-wise, man. You get your one stud, and then you really, really got to craft the right lineup around that.
Right. Bud Light guy from the James Stadium for 3,500. Yep. Nope. That's it gets rough on DraftKings. I did notice that myself. A guy I'm paying up for this week. So Jonathan Taylor was actually my pay up guy, but I'm also going to be paying up for another guy across the states there. And that's Christian McCaffrey. I feel like Christian McCaffrey against the Giants is going to have a game like that. It's not like he had a terrible game last week, but he didn't have a Christian McCaffrey game. I think hopefully Baker Mayfield realizes that he has this asset to his disposal and will actually start being able to utilize Christian McCaffrey a little bit more, especially in the passing game. So I think you see Carolina bring New York Giants back down to earth a little bit. I think that defense is a lot better than what they showed last week as well. So
they almost won that game last week, even still. Carolina.
Yeah. Yep. They really had to come back, but they really let a team that I feel like is very inferior push them around out there. And I don't see them getting that. I don't think the Giants will be able to do the same thing. So that's who I'm going to be paying up for this week. Teams that were fading or guys that were fading out there. And I'll go ahead and start this one off. So one of the teams, Tampa Bay, I understand that Tampa Bay New Orleans game is usually pretty high scoring, but I think I'm going to lay off of that game. I think I'm going to be basically staying away from most pieces and parts. I don't really see Michael Thomas having another 2-touchdown game. And if you take away those touchdowns, he had a very low volume night. Not very Michael Thomas-esque, it was great that he had the 2 tutties, but I don't really count on a lot of that. And then Alvin Kamara's being banged up. I just really have zero faith in both sides of the ball on that. So that's one game I'm fading right there is the Tampa New Orleans game. Joe, is there anybody out there you're in particularly fading?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I'm gravitating to the Steeler defense, which is only like 2,600 on DraftKings playing the Patriots this week. And in that fashion, I'm fading most of the offense on both of those teams. So you're talking about 2 above average defenses in the Patriots and the Steelers, and 2 what is looking to be below average offenses in the Patriots and the Steelers. Now, kudos to the Steelers for squeaking out that game last week in Cincinnati. That's a hell of a week 1 win. However, I don't think it was because of Mitch Trubisky. And, again, the Patriots have a strong defense, so I'm not feeling great about the Pittsburgh offense. Even Najee Harris, would I play him because he's only 6,200? Yes. Do I love Harris? No. And then when you look on that Patriot side, I guess maybe I'd play Hunter Henry if I felt like I really wanted to, give somebody a shot there. But that Patriot offense at this point, for me, I'm going to have to see it to believe it before I put any money into anybody really on that offense right now.
I agree with that one too. That's a hard fade for me as well. Jeff, how about yourself? Do you have any games you're fading or staying out of this week?
Yeah, I'm basically staying away from Miami as a whole. I've never been a Tua believer. There might have been a couple weeks last year. Joe might disagree with me on that. I was kind of, liking Tua here and there. But at Baltimore, I think that's a very tough matchup. Lamar Jackson, in my opinion, will prove to be the better quarterback. And I just simply don't like Tyreek Hill in general anyway. So maybe emotions is playing part of it. But again, I don't like Tua. I think the Miami offense is a lot of hype, and I'm staying away from that one.
So let me rebut that. I'm going to rebut that real quick. And then I do agree.
Give it to me.
I do agree. I don't like Tua this week at Baltimore. I think most people would agree that that's not a great fantasy DFS start by any means. And he did only put 14 up against the Patriots last week. However, that being said, I don't need Tua to win games. I don't even need Tua to throw the ball to his own team. He wants to throw 25 interceptions this year. That's fine with me too. All I need Tua to do is to give both Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill their 10 to 12 catches and their 120 to 140 yards a week, get them their touchdowns, have them run for a few yards, get in the end zone every other week with his feet, and you have got a very, very fine, let's say, super flex quarterback on your roster, backup quarterback on your roster in Tua, and he's going to enable a good year out of both Waddle and Tyreek Hill in a PPR. And that's all we need him to do. We don't need him to win games. We don't even need him to look good. We just need him to get the ball to those two animals on the outside.
I'll tell you what, Joe, and I don't mean to interrupt, but that'll be fantastic when you see Lamar Jackson doing that in a Dolphins uniform next year. So you heard it first.
Hey, that would be a really that would be a piece of the puzzle that I can see standing for sure. We got Rich saying Raiders and Cardinals is a good game to get some DFS action stacks. I think I think there's a lot of action in that game.
Yes.
I agree. I think both sides of the ball. I think I like Connor a lot. I'm a little bit lower on Josh Jacobs than maybe some, but I really liked what I saw to Devontae Adams. I was quite wrong about my assessment of what Carr and Adams would be like, and it looks like Adams is definitely going to be getting a lot of targets out there. Hunter Renfrow was a little bit disappointing. Hopefully he gets a little bit more involved, and it seemed like Waller was still getting at least some red zone looks. And then he says it's Hines not a great option. This week, I think Hines is a great option. I think Jonathan Taylor and Nyheim Hines are about the only two options on that team that I even kind of like. I'm definitely fading Matt Ryan. And I know Paris Campbell's the guy to throw to, but I don't believe he's going to.
No, it's a great point on Hines. Hines could be a cash cow on a PPR. If he goes for 6 catches, 50, 60 yards, then he gets some trash fourth quarter carries, gets in the end zone, you could easily end up having a game where both those running backs go for 20 plus.
I already bagged on Matt Ryan enough last week, so I don't need to pile on top of that.
Well, he didn't prove you wrong, that's for sure. I'm not reading that. I'm not giving him the ego boost to read that.
We got Mike a little.
Oh, I'm muted. That's the greatest part. I said the guy in the top left is sexy, and it's funny how it looks like the guy in the top left is actually in her picture as well. Thanks, baby. It's good to hear from you. Love you. Can't wait to see you tonight. She's at work. So we got Rich Gonzalez says Ramondre is a sneaky value pick. I agree. He's on my daily slate. Rich, I picked Ramondre Stevenson as my running back too this week. So that's a good pick, and that's actually a good segue. We'll go ahead and get into our lineups. And Jeff, we're going to go ahead and start off with you this week. Who you playing out there this week? Who can we get on right now that we can win millions of dollars with you this week with?
I mean, first of all, I hate to disagree with you. I'll never take any. I'm a Patriots fan, and I will never take anybody from the Patriots offense. You just simply can't trust them. But my picks, Quarterback, I'm going Baker Mayfield. I think he's got the Cleveland game out of his system. He's at the Giants. He's only 7,000. It's a good value. I think he steps back up this week and has a good week. I'm also going DeAndre Swift. I can't believe I'm taking somebody from the rebuilding since 1957 Detroit Lions, but DeAndre Swift has probably been the best fantasy option since God knows how long. The one guy I'm kind of taking a flyer on this week, and that's because Elijah Mitchell is injured, and I think it's a good matchup. Is Jeff Wilson Jr. home versus Seattle? We saw what Javonte Williams did to Seattle. I think Jeff Wilson Jr. at 6,300 is a good insert into the lineup in order to get some of those higher price guys like DeAndre Swift. And my next guy, obviously, I mentioned Cooper Kupp. I'm going to be paying up for him until he stops producing, which I don't even know if that's ever going to stop. A couple other wide receivers. We already mentioned him earlier. Hunter Renfrow. I love that Arizona game for stacking it. I love Hunter Renfrow. I like Derek Carr too. And also Devontae Adams. And I told you to stay away from the Raiders last week. This week, I like that matchup against Arizona. Another guy who's kind of on the radar because the Jets are so inept and have so many holes. I'm going to go with Donovan Peoples-Jones. He's at 5,800. And we'll see what happens. I know he's got Jacoby Brissett throwing to him, but again, the Jets got so many issues that this might be a good play for 5,800 in order to get a couple of those guys. Zach Ertz, I got it as my tight end and the kind of that comeback. They're going to need to throw to somebody to catch up to the Raiders' points. Joe Mixon versus Dallas, who Dallas might as well just lay down because who knows if their offense is even going to show up. And then because of that, I'm taking Cincy's defense versus Dallas, 3,900. I think it's a no-brainer right there.
That's funny. You know, it's great how many of us were talking about how the Jets killed the draft this year. And it certainly doesn't look that way after week one. But week one can also be deceptive. That's one thing we always remember is that week one can always be deceptive. We will wait to see what we got with a little bit more time on that team. Joe, who you got this week? Who you rolling out there?
Yeah, gotta say, Jeff and I on the same page this week, but I'm gonna go with a quarterback. I find this to be an odd slate of quarterbacks. When Kyler Murray's the most expensive one on the slate, it's a little odd for the 1 p.m. main slate. I'm going Joe Burrow. For me, it's everything the Bengals reversing the negative from last week and picking on Dallas to do so. So not only am I going Burrow, I'm going Burrow and Jamar Chase. Burrow 6,600, Chase 8,000 respectively. I am going to take advantage of that stack. I expect almost 100 yards and a touchdown from Chase in that first half. Running backs, we've talked about both of them. I love the duo. We're going to CMC, Christian McCaffrey, 8,900 against the Giants. So basically what we're talking about is saving $1,000 versus taking Jonathan Taylor and you're getting CMC in your lineup. To your point, Mike, I think he goes for more than 4 catches. I think he gets in the end zone, and I think we have a 20-plus day from him. Other running back is Javonte Williams for the Broncos. I mean, 7 for 43 last week and then 11 catches for 65 yards. Yeah. He was Russell Wilson's binky pacifier, whatever your baby calls it. That is what Javonte Williams was to Russell Wilson last week. And the fact that they need to right the wrong of their week one home against Houston. I love Williams. Jeff, you said it. Donovan Peoples-Jones, 4,400 home against the Jets. He was the most targeted Cleveland Brown last week, and I think he's going to have a chance to make some big plays. 4,400 is great value there. And then my other cheap wideout play, Jahan Dotson for the Washington Commanders. He went for 3 catches, 40 yards, 2 touchdowns last week. I'll be honest, it took me a minute between Dotson and Curtis Samuels for the Commanders. Curtis Samuel had a big day last week for Washington. Also, in this situation, I'm going to save a couple extra $100 and go Dotson. Tight end, I'm actually playing a Jet, which is shocking, but I've got an argument for it. We are going to go with we're going to go Tyler Conklin.
Jeff said that's enough. He's out of here. He walked out of his house.
So Tyler Conklin, 16 yards and a touchdown last week for them. Uzoma is out. They've got no backup tight end. Coughlin's going to get pretty much all of the tight end targets. So again, if he goes for 5 and 50, it's worth it on DraftKings for $3,400. I'm flexing as Jeff already took care of this one too. Jeff Wilson Jr., 5,100. Another team, San Francisco, playoff contender, playing at home after a horrible week 1 loss. Gotta believe that they pound Seattle into the ground. Jeff Wilson playing a huge role in that. And then I am going to pick on that New England Patriot offense, and for 2,800, go with that Steeler defense. Now, that being said, Jeff brought up another good point with that Bengal defense, and on DraftKings, they're only 2,200. So, I'm not against that play either. I think that's a good defensive play this week too.
Yeah, no, it's funny because that's the defense I actually have on my slate too, is the Bengals, because I'm like Dallas with Cooper Rush or Troy Aikman. I don't really even know who their quarterback is. Furthermore, I don't know if they know who their quarterback is. So I think that's a really good situation for any defense to be in. We got Derek Carr coming in as my quarterback at 7,300 against Arizona. I really like that play a lot. I was able to squeeze in Jonathan Taylor for 10,000. Then, like I told Rich, I'm in on Ramondre Stevenson against Pitt. I don't think that there's a whole lot of options in there, but I think Ramondre Stevenson can score. Jerry Jeudy, hey man, he looked awesome last week. That guy was on fire. He got 18 points PPR, or half point PPR anyways. I got him going out there for 6,300. I think he's going to be able to repeat that and score. I think Brandon Ayuk becomes a thing this week, because I think last week, Chicago, that was a very, very wet, stormy game. I don't think we got to see their whole offense. I was really kind of disappointed with what I saw in Trey Lance, but I think give him another week, give him another chance, because that was a kind of an anomaly of a game. Let's see what these guys got. And I think Ayuk can at least eat a little bit at the price tag of 5,700. Jalen Waddle was my next guy. And I mean, that's just a guy I think is going to produce. I don't think you're going to see, I see you shrugging over there, Jeff. I'm with you. I don't think you're going to see much over, like, say, a 2 for 60 with the touchdown. I think you'll see him with games like with 4 with 100, but those are going to be games that he doesn't have the touchdowns, things like that. I think you're looking at a good solid 14, 15 points a game out of Jalen Waddle, though. So, and that's what I'm looking for out of my flex, or not my flex, but out of that third receiver right there. I'm going with OJ Howard. I'm a believer, man. I've been an OJ Howard believer for a long time. I finally got to see that guy hit the end zone twice last week. Like I told everybody, I called that shit. I called it 4 years ago.
I looked at him this week. I did. That was those are his only 2 catches. Is that correct or no?
No, I think he had one more. I think he had one more for like 3 yards, but he didn't have a whole lot of yardage. But I think against Denver, I think you're going to have a lot of dried up options fast on that Houston offense. I think OJ Howard should at least get a little bit of action. And then I was able to squeeze in C-Mac going with those 2 cheap options there at the end for 9,000 against the Giants. Again, I agree with you guys. And then the Bengals to close out my my defense there, because dude, I'm with you. I think Dallas gave up. I don't even know if CeeDee Lamb or Ezekiel Elliott are going to the game tomorrow. I think they're paying those. What is that thing that you do? They're paying a guy to go in there for them. I can't remember what they call that stuff, but
replacement.
It'd be like Keanu Reeves from the Replacements.
Yeah, they're going to pay proxies to go in there. Like, hi, I'm Ezekiel Elliott today. It's Bill from The Office, but it's okay.
Yeah, and he's wearing a half shirt like Zeke does, with looking ridiculous. But
exactly.
The one guy that people were high on for the Cowboys other than CeeDee Lamb, was Pollard, but he didn't do anything last week either.
Yeah, Pollard really kind of disappointed me. I thought I had a lot of expectations with him coming out of the flex and things like that, or coming out of the slot. I thought that we were going to see him coming out of the slot in a few situations. And, I really honestly think that maybe a Dak Prescott injury, and I never pro injury, right? Never pro injury. You never want to root for an injury on a team or a player, but I think that might be a really good thing for Dallas, because I feel like, man, I mean, I've been saying it. If you follow me in our off-season chats and things like that, I talk a lot about how I feel like Dak Prescott has really stepped down a level or two, and I don't see it getting any better anytime soon. I think he came out hot. I think once he got a lot of tape on Dak Prescott, he got ineffective in a hurry. And I think he's been ineffective for the better part of 2 or 3 years. And I think now we're really starting to see it. So I think we see a different opportunity in there with a lot of these weapons, this could be a good thing. I mean, I'm not saying Cooper Rush is going to go out there and do anything, but I'm saying like maybe if they're able to go out there and snag like a Jimmy Garoppolo or something to that effect. Now, I don't think Jimmy Garoppolo is any better than Dak Prescott, right? But I think just giving those guys a fresh look, maybe a different kind of a quarterback, because I don't think Dak was an effective quarterback anymore. I think he lost that edge.
Yeah, I think about the Cowboys when I think about and look at Amari Cooper in Cleveland too, because I kind of goes together, right? Like, was Prescott the issue? Amari Cooper went from huge game to not showing up in a game his whole career in Dallas. Was Amari Cooper the issue? And Cooper didn't do much last week in Cleveland, but that's just 1 week. But yeah, I see what you're saying there, Mike, and I'm not sure who the who the suspect is there, but they are just a broken franchise right now. And whether it's their offense, their defense, their coaching, their front offense, their freaking special teams games at the team, in certain years, one of the areas of the NFL franchise just hijacks that team each and every single season.
Absolutely.
And to expand on that, Joe, I don't think Dallas knows who they are. Zeke had an enormous rookie season. They paid him all that money. They were kind of like the running team, and then all of a sudden they turned into the passing team, and now they're at the I don't know what we're doing team. So we don't know what they're doing. They don't know what they're doing. It should be interesting the rest of the year because I don't think they'll do anything fantasy-wise.
Let me ask you guys about one more, seeing we're on the subject of the team like that, and I'll stay even in the same division. And the only reason why I asked this, and I know we want to get out of here soon, is this team and these players kept on popping up. And as I was making my lineup this week, we've talked about it a little, but Washington, the Commanders, which I mean, and I am a big fan of staying away from players on shitty teams for years and years and years from a fantasy perspective. But Carson Wentz went for 32 fantasy points last week. Antonio Gibson hit 20, Dotson hit 20, and Curtis Samuel hit 20. So you're talking a quarterback, running back, and 2 wideouts hit 20 plus last week.
Terry McLaurin hit like 17 or 18 too.
There you go. So
yeah.
And now they've got Detroit this week. So where are we with them? Like, my secondary DraftKings lineup, I got Carson Wentz, and I can't believe it. I can't believe I'm doing it. But he put up 32 last week. They're playing Detroit this week. It's hard to lay off that. What do you think? Or is it fool's gold?
But I'll tell you what, Joe, one thing I will say, and we've talked about this before, is don't get caught in the pitfalls of basing your picks on the previous week alone. Yeah. You got to see a whole body of work. It's kind of a trap when you see what a guy does 1 week and then all of a sudden to the next week, if you're just basing on that simply. So Carson Wentz, I mean, Washington's kind of like Indianapolis light. I mean, he basically have the same kind of pieces in Washington as he did last year in Indy, just not as good. I don't see Wentz doing a whole lot the whole year. Maybe we'll see what happens this week. Maybe it does well, but I wouldn't get into that trap of, hey, he did well last week, so I got to start him.
Mike, what do you think? At Detroit this week, does Washington come through fantasy-wise?
I think they do. I'm with you now. But now I also have to admit, I'm a Carson Wentz believer. Now, I've always been a Carson Wentz believer. He comes from the same coaching strategy as Josh Allen, which is the Craig Bowles network, right? Like, Craig Bowles can coach quarterbacks. He is one of the better quarterbacks coach in the game. And he never gets notoriety for it. But I mean, like I said, you got Carson Wentz that came out of North Dakota State. Right after that, Craig Bowles went to Wyoming and he coached Josh Allen for 4 years. And we see what Josh Allen can bring to the table, right? Carson Wentz has gone to a Super Bowl. I mean, I guess granted he got hurt right before the Super Bowl, but he had a team that he built and was able to. He's a Super Bowl quarterback or caliber quarterback. Yep. Is all I'm trying to say there. And so I mean, like, to sit there and always check him out. Like, I don't think Indianapolis was a good fit. I don't think that's his style. I think Washington really fits his style and his scheme. And I think because it's a grittier game, right? Like, you got to give these guys gritty. You got to give them, it's like dirty jobs. You come out of that neck of the woods, you come a little dirty. So you got to give them that little dirty scenario, like the Dotson. You got to give them the Antonio Gibson and not the Jonathan Taylor. You got to make this guy work for it a little bit. And I think he's got the perfect situation. I can really see that team being great fantasy wise. And I'm all in on that Washington Detroit game. I think it's going to be like 34 to, let's say 28, something to that effect. I think pick your winner. I mean, I think either one of those teams can beat either one of those teams. So, but I see the score hitting around the 65, 70 mark, somewhere in that mark for your total score. So no, I'm all in on Washington. I think they're going to be a fantasy cash cow this year. I don't think they're going to go in and win the Super Bowl by any means, but they're going to win me some championships.
That's all I needed to hear, my friend.
Okay. I like it, Mike. I like it.
I dig. Okay, guys. Well, that's going to wrap it up for us tonight. We're going to go ahead and get our one last sleep in before another day of we got the Blitz tomorrow morning at 10:30. Make sure you're there. We answer your questions live. We'll have me and Joe showing back up. Jeff will be out there sleeping like a smart man, single in South Carolina like the genius that he is, man. Like, look at this guy go. He's got it all figured out. I'm telling you. I'm like sitting there so jealous. I'm like, well, I'm going to be listening to a crying baby most of the time tomorrow and not in a nice house on a beach. Enjoy life. Make sure you get on patreon.com/Toes the Titles. Again, here's all the breakdowns. You got the $3, $5, $10, $7, all that fun stuff. Just make sure you get on there, get us, go buy us a cup of coffee, something. Just do it for us. We got Rich chiming in. Wentz will win you money this week. That's our dollars to deuces guy telling you get in there on that. So again, guys, we're going to wrap it up. Go to toestitles.com. Enjoy. Thank you guys once again for joining me this week. I appreciate it as always, and we will see you guys all tomorrow.